On trends today, massive defection rocks Enugu as Governor Mbah, former Governor Ugwuanyi and PDP heavyweights move to APC. National Human Rights Commission joins call for the abolition of the death penalty for women in Nigeria. And 1 million copies of the Holy Bible to be distributed nationwide in honor of Sheyi Tinubu's 40th birthday. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Trends with LJE, where we analyze major stories shaping leadership, justice and economic growth across Nigeria and Africa. Today we take a closer look at major political realignments in Enugu, renewed call for justice reform and women's rights, and a nationwide faith-based initiative marking the president's son's 40th birthday. Joining me to discuss this is a guest whom I shall be introducing after the break. Stay tuned.
Camera rolling. Light set. Sound check. And action.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's program, a program where we get to talk about the daily lawyers and technical issues with intent to educate.
This is the perfect space to create professional quality videos, recording news, podcasts, and all media content. With top-of-the-line cameras, studio lighting, soundproof spaces, we provide everything you need for a seamless shoot. Our fully equipped studio ensures high-quality production every time. Enjoy a comfortable, air-conditioned environment with professional-grade gear and expert support. Contact us now or visit our Abuja location to reserve your spot.
Welcome back to Trends with LJE, and I have in the studio with me Dr. John Nkamiang, a communications and strategic media analyst. You're welcome, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now let's begin with the political storm brewing in Enugu State. The political atmosphere in Enugu State has taken a dramatic turn as Governor Peter Mbah, along with former Governor Ugwuanyi and over 80% of the People's Democratic Party leaders have reportedly defected to the All Progressives Congress. Now, report says the defection comes after weeks of strategic consultations and closed-door meetings aimed at reshaping Enugu's political structure ahead of the next election cycle. Analysts believe this move could significantly alter the state's long-standing political balance, given that Enugu has been a PDP stronghold since 1999. But party loyalists describe the mass defection as a move towards political stability and renewed cooperation with the federal government, while critics see it as another sign of Nigeria's weak ideology and fluid loyalty culture. Now, Dr. John, what does this wave of defection mean for the future of PDP, given that some of its sitting governors and other stakeholders are defecting to the APC?
Well, at the immediate, it's suggesting that the PDP could slip into oblivion, become a party that was once the powerhouse of politics in Nigeria, gradually becoming not just a minority, but now falling way within the numbers. I mean, we've seen in recent times the advent of the ADC, and it's gradually gaining momentum. You still have parties like SDP, and then the new parties that are coming on board based on the parties that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has given approval to be fully registered once they meet the needed criteria. So the dynamics on the political chessboard is still unpredictable, but the trend of defections is not new. The APC is gradually tilting the Nigerian political scene to a one-party state, because what they are suggesting is that regardless of what ideology you have, as long as they remain the party in power, you must move over to the APC or nothing works for you. And I think the bigger question for Nigeria and the political elite is, what kind of political future are we carving for a democracy that is supposedly the longest democracy on the black continent, and for the kind of democracy that we say we practice. We claim to be practicing democracy, but some of us who belong to a different school of thought suggest that what we are practicing is not necessarily good democracy, because democracy suggests the people come first. But what we see is that it is the political elites that come first. It is their wants that come first, and that of the people comes secondary.
Yes.
And that obviously does not suggest we're practicing democracy. Maybe we are practicing another form of political strategy, which is still yet to be fully understood, but definitely not democracy.
Okay, so do you think, well, you said we're gradually turning into a one-party system. Do you think
Yes.
that's a thing that would actually come to stay in Nigeria? Judging from
We have
the way-
experimented with all kinds of political ideologies. During the era of military head of state Ibrahim Babangida, we had two-party state where we had the NRC, we had the SDP. We even from independence, looking at when Nigeria was supposedly seen as regions and all of that. We've experimented with the parliamentary system. Now we're doing the presidential system. One would expect for a country that is over 60 years old or about 60 years old, that by now we should clearly define what our political system looks like, how what path it would follow in terms of its future evolution. But we are still wrangling with a political system that is highly corrupt, that is solely money driven, because we play money politics, and that is why the big question of whether the votes of the average Nigerian counts continues to rear its head. Earlier today I had a conversation with a colleague where we were looking at the continued voter apathy that has continued to decline. The numbers continue to show that every time we go to the polls, the numbers drops.
Yes.
And there are suggestions that the figures we're looking at may have been doctored, both by the political class, both by the political party in government, in power, the incumbent party, and sadly, civil society seems to be also falling prey to all of this. So that also, kinds of authenticates why the European Union and most of these international bodies that come to monitor our elections continue to question the outcomes of our elections. And most importantly, as long as the courts continue to decide winners of elections, that in itself questions the credibility of the polls, questions the credibility of the electoral umpires, questions the entire electoral system.
That's okay. Thank you very much. So let's move on to the next story. A non-governmental organization in collaboration with the National Human Rights Commission has renewed calls for the abolition of the death penalty for women in Nigeria. Speaking at a meeting in Abuja, Funke Adeoye, executive director of the organization, described the death penalty as the most irreversible form of human rights violation. The event, held to mark the World Day Against the Death Penalty, brought together representatives from the Legal Aid Council, the Nigerian Correctional Service, and diplomatic partners, including the Australian High Commission, Embassy of Belgium, and French Embassy. Adeoye emphasized that women on death row often face unique vulnerabilities, including gender-based violence, limited to fair trials, and socio-economic disadvantages. Now, Dr. John, let's relate this to the presidential pardon that the president recently gave to Mariam Sanda. Do you think this is something Nigeria should start considering?
Well, if we want to follow global trends, countries where the death penalty used to be very effective have now moved away from death penalties to other sentences because of the sanctity of life. And the fact that remains that no system is infallible in terms of just the dispensation of justice, and even in terms of the dynamics of the rule of law. Why? Because there is no law that is infallible.
Yes.
So based on this, there have been arguments both for and against when it comes to the subject of death penalties. And I am particularly, I must applaud the Human Rights Commission for loaning its voice to the call for the dismantling of the death penalty. But what I expect from the Human Rights Commission is to be able to put forward what I would suggest to be superior argument in terms of legal, looking at our laws and repealing laws that make the death penalty still potent, and be able to promulgate laws that suggest that if someone has been convicted of, like in the case of Madam Sanders, of convicted of murder and homicide, that we should look at other punitive measures that suggest correctional approach. That's why some of us say it's not just enough for our correctional centers to be called correctional centers, but in terms of how they affect the lives of the inmate. Are the inmates coming out better citizens than they went in? Are they coming out with life skills that will help them to gradually reintegrate themselves into the general populace and society, for them to once again be able to gain the confidence of being seen as respectable members of society? So until we are able to produce laws that understand the dynamics of the human mind and the psychology behind someone who has been accused of committing a crime, then you will be able to further understand the kind of society we want for the future. So yes, it's one thing to add its voice for the abolition of the death penalty, but the question will now be, if we remove the death penalty, what should be the penultimate punishment for people who have been found guilty of crimes of grievous yes, exactly. So that until you can give that balance, it will continue to be an argument back and forth. There will be divided parts of the legal society that will look at it from various perspectives of the Constitution, the rule of law, human rights, and all of that. But in the end, we do not also want to have a system that suggests that you can commit a crime and get away with it. You must be able to pay, as they say in the Western Hemisphere, if you do the crime, you must do the time.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's move on to our final story for today. In a symbolic act of faith and leadership, 1 million copies of the Holy Bible will be distributed nationwide to mark the 40th birthday of Sheyi Tinubu, son of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The initiative was announced during a Thanksgiving service at the National Christian Center, Abuja, by Honorable Bello Chukwu Enwere, National Chairman of the Youth Wing of the Christian Association of Nigeria. Enwere said the initiative aims to promote moral rebirth, ethical leadership, and national unity among Nigerian youth. He emphasized that the project was not to celebrate an individual, but to invest spiritually in the nation's moral revival. The project has sparked both commendation and curiosity, with many Nigerians applauding the moral symbolism, while others question the intersection of faith, politics, and publicity. Dr. John, what is your general take on this?
Well, I just think it's a good gesture. Over time, Nigerians have imbibed this lifestyle of most times wanting to give back to society. So you see a lot of high-profile Nigerians celebrating their birthdays in motherless baby homes, going to the homes of the elderly, and as well do Thanksgiving, giving glory to God for having kept them. Don't forget, we're a secular state. We respect the choice of religion, and the case of the Bola Tinubu family is quite unique because Mr. President is a Muslim, the wife is a Christian, and now his son is leaning towards Christianity. So it carries a lot of mixed reactions. But in the end, I think it's the intentions that matter. The fact that we are propagating a high level of moral, religious standards. But again, there will be the argument of that intersection of religion and politics, especially knowing that the first son of the Federation has some political ambitions, and so some political watchers will be curious as to why he has chosen to walk this path. What is the correlation between the idea of giving out Bibles with his 40th birthday and whether there are some political undercurrents to this gesture? But anyway, the fact still remains that the intentions should be what Nigerians should look at, and wish the first son of the Federation well.
Thank you very much. And that's how we wrap it up on today's edition of Trends with LJE. From political realignment to justice reform and moral revival, each story today reminds us that leadership is not just about power, it's about purpose, conviction, and compassion. Thank you very much, Dr. John, for being a part of the program.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. Don't forget to join the conversation online and follow us on at LJE Nigeria across all platforms. I am Omoyeni Ojefu. See you next time on Trends with LJE.